Just as chickens are kept in coops, pigeons are kept in pigeon lofts. And just like chicken coops, pigeon lofts can come in all shapes, sizes, and prices. For some people who making pigeon racing their full-time income, pigeon lofts can be amazing and very expensive. They will have well-designed structures that are easier to clean and care for, and have excellent ventilation. For some people this is suitable, especially if pigeon racing is a passion for them, or if they make their living by racing pigeons. Some American flyers make an excess of $200,000 a year racing and selling pigeons. It is not hard to do considering that first prize may be more than $80,000. Some of these lofts are so expensive, the average person could not afford to buy one for a house, let alone for a pigeon loft. But don't be discouraged, the average pigeon fancier's loft does not need to be this fancy or large. Actually, most pigeon lofts are small and they can be built very cost-effectively. Here are some quick tips. Whether your pigeon loft is small or large, cheap or expensive, it must be well ventilated, dry, free from drafts, well lit and safe. Remember, this is the home for your pigeons. If you want them to come back, you must provide them with safety and nice living conditions. If you do not, they will eventually leave to find a place that does have them. Make sure that your loft has a good roof. The roof should hang well beyond the walls, because a driving rain will come through any openings that are not covered by the roof. The pigeon loft should be enclosed by at least 3 sides. 4 walls are better. Pigeons are not like robins and other birds that live in trees, they like security. 3 or 4 walls gives them the protection and security from the weather and other animals. Make sure you face the loft toward the direction of your nicest weather. Most American lofts face either east or south, but this depends on your own local climate. Pigeons must be familiar with their surroundings before they take off and fly. If they are forced to fly before they know where home is, they will probably become lost. A pigeon loft has a landing board where the pigeons enter and leave, and this landing board allows the pigeons to stand and become familiar with their surroundings. At the end of the landing board should be a flap that covers the traps or bobs. When the birds are inside the loft, the flap should be closed. Cats would like nothing more than to enter your loft and have a nice lunch, and the bobs will not keep cats out. Cats will easily bend the traps, and then not only eat some of your birds but also kill many more through shock and hunting instinct. Just make sure you keep the flap closed when your pigeons are inside. Some pigeon lofts have a fly cage attached to the loft. This fly cage allows the pigeons to go safely outside and enjoy the fresh air and sunshine. It also gives youngsters the opportunity to look at their surroundings and become familiar with their home and location. Loft location: a pigeon loft with pigeons that are allowed to fly outside should be out in the open. It should not be covered by trees. The pigeons need to be able to see their surroundings. They also need to be able to see their loft when they are flying. If you get a choice, do not place your loft near wires. Pigeons flyers that have lots of wires around their homes have many problems with broken legs and wings. Loft direction. Your pigeon loft should be facing the direction of your most pleasant weather. It should be facing away from the bad weather of winter. For most people, the best direction to face their lofts is to the east or south. Blocks. The loft should be placed on concrete blocks. If you are building your pigeon loft on a concrete floor, the blocks are not needed. Most fanciers have a wooden floor in their lofts. By placing the loft off the ground, you discourage rats, mice, weasels, skunks, and other animals from living under your loft. Most of these animals only spell trouble for you and your pigeons, and your neighbors would not appreciate them either. Loft ventilation. Proper ventilation is essential to the health of your birds, and it doesn't just mean adding a window or 2. Windows allow rain and bad weather into the loft, and allow the floor to get wet, which is also not good for your birds. Proper ventilation must start with ventilators in the top of the roof to allow heat and carbon dioxide out, and vents lower down to allow cool air to be drawn into the loft. Traps. For those fanciers that intend to allow their birds to fly outside, traps or bobs are a must. Traps mean that once the birds have come into the loft, they cannot leave again. Pigeons should either be out exercising, or inside the loft. If they are outside all day, they get into bad habits, so as soon as they are finished flying, they should be called into the loft. This is for several reasons. Firstly, because for good racing results you need to train your pigeons to return directly to the loft when they have finished flying. You also don't want your pigeons making a mess of the neighborhood, or mixing with common pigeons where they could pick up diseases and eat bad food. Train them at an early age to enter the loft as soon as they are finished flying. If they land on your neighbor's house or sit on telephone wires, throw something soft at them, such as a tennis ball. This will teach them that the only place to land is on your own property. There is of course an exception to the suggestion of throwing tennis balls at your pigeons when they land where you don't want them to. Make sure they know where home is before you do something like this, or you may find they fly away and do not return. Landing board. The landing board is placed in front of the traps. This is the landing and taking off pad that the birds use as they enter and leave the loft. It should be large enough for the birds to land and take off easily. If it is too small, the birds will not be able to enter the loft easily, and they will not be as willing to come into the loft when you call them. It should also be large enough for your youngsters to sit and look at their surroundings. Aviaries. An aviary or fly cage can be added to your loft. They are particularly helpful when it comes to caring for birds that are always kept in their loft. The aviary allows the birds to go outside and get some fresh air and sunshine. Some fanciers make the top of the aviary from wood or shingles. This is helpful in keeping droppings from sparrows or starlings out of your loft. These droppings could have some serious diseases that you would not want your pigeons to catch. Other fanciers take the risk and make their aviary top from wire. They feel that the advantage of allowing the pigeons outside in an open-top aviary allows rain and sunshine to enter all the parts of the aviary, which makes it possible for the birds to take rain and sun baths. Paint. Paint is a great tool in being a good ambassador for the sport of racing pigeons. It's amazing how fresh and clean a loft looks after a coat of paint, and there is no excuse for having a sloppy-looking loft. It will also remind you to keep the area around the loft cleaned up, which discourages rats, mice, and other pests. Take pride in your loft and pigeons. Take pride yourself. Keep your loft painted. Locks. No pigeon loft should be without a lock. Over the years, a number of American fanciers have had their lofts vandalized. Their pigeons were either stolen or killed. A lock is not very expensive and is a good investment for every loft. Perches. There are several types of perches that you can build or buy. They are important parts of your pigeon's lives. This is especially true for youngsters. This is their home inside their home. Once they have selected their perch, they will fight to keep it. Do not have more birds than perches, or the birds who miss out will be uncomfortable and have no desire to return home. They will be the first to be lost because they do not have the desire to come back to a loft where they are left out. That perch is very important because it is the magnet that draws pigeons home. V-perches. V-perches are easy to and cheap to build, and cleaning them is very easy, but they do have some drawbacks. On open perches like this, it is easy for the birds to soil the pigeons below them if you make them too short. It also makes catching the birds a little more difficult. Box perches. Box perches are more difficult to build, and they cost more. They are excellent for controlling pigeons, because the birds cannot jump from one perch to another perch when you want to catch them. It is also harder for them to soil the other birds below with their droppings. Box perches are usually 9 by 9. If they are much larger than that, the pigeons often get their own droppings on their own perches. Nests. Nests are to old birds as perches are to youngsters. They are a big reason why old birds want to come home. It is their home within a home. Once they select a nest, they will fight to keep it. For this very reason, it is very useful to have fronts on your nests. It helps keep other pairs out. Homing pigeons have nest boxes approximately 1 foot high, 1 foot wide, and 2 feet long. Good nest boxes have fronts that go on or off easily. Since the nest should be cleaned after each round of youngsters, it is helpful to have a good nest front. It makes cleaning the nest easier. A front can also be a big help when it is time to lock up the pairs during the mate selection process at the beginning of the breeding season. Good nest fronts are also helpful in keeping your pairs out of the nests when the breeding season is over.